Hello everyone, what's going on? This is Hahex from the Hahex1 YouTube channel. Today I'm going to be talking about Bravely Second, which obviously comes out of the States on the 15th. Now, as someone living in England, I've had the fortune of being able to play the localized version of Bravely Second a little bit earlier than you guys. Came out for us in February, I believe. Which means I've actually finally gotten around to finishing it in the last couple of weeks, so I'd like to give a couple of things that I would have been like to be told before I started the game to you guys. Obviously a lot of you people are going to be returning players from Bravely Default, so I'm going to try and keep the general section as short as possible while moving on to the new classes later on in the video. So let's get started straight away. Tip number 1, please play the demo. Obviously, well, I say please play the demo, you don't really have to, but you get a bunch of nice items if you do. Items such as potions, Phoenix Downs, high potions, they're all going to be incredibly useful, especially early on in the game where you don't have that many, we don't actually have a healing class per se. But you do have the Freelancer, who at level 3 gets a skill called Half Seize, which lets you use items on your entire team for half their value, which means if you half seize a Phoenix down, you get to revive your entire team if they're all knocked out. If you use half seize on a high potion, you get to heal your entire team for 75 health, and it's all good. Yeah, so definitely try and get those items ASP. In my playthrough I actually ended up using all the items I got from the demo in the end, so definitely very useful for getting through the early stages, especially on hard difficulty. Tip number 2, don't be afraid to use Bravely Second is my tip number 2. Obviously I'd never actually used it that much in Bravely Default. I still didn't actually use it that much in Bravely Second. You don't really need it. It's kind of the thing about it. You don't need it, but it's nice, you know, that it's in the game. If you have 3 charges, anytime you're sitting on 3 charges, it's time spent not charging. It's basically time wasted as far as SP goes. So just throw it out if you're finishing off a boss, or for example, if you use the Freelancer examine skill, you can see exactly how much health the boss has left. Then you can just Bravely Second when it's on low health, finishing it off, and that way you can guarantee that, or as close to guarantee that you don't waste SP as much as possible. So if you just throw it out there when the boss is on low health. Obviously the big fear with SP is that, you know, you'll end up wasting it, for example, but what I recommend is just try not to worry about that. Just focus on trying to make sure that you're using a little bit of it every now and then. Yeah, because it's there to be used, and it's a shame if you end up going through the whole game without using it. Tip number 3, be smart with your money. Obviously if you get new weapons and spells, you can't actually use any of them if your party is dead. And you won't have enough money to buy every new item in a new town anyway. So I recommend, especially on harder difficulties, you prioritize your defenses over your damage, especially early on in the game. That's, you know, to make sure that you actually stay alive long enough to use all your weapons and stuff, all your fancy attacking stuff. If you really want damages, then at the very least start off with those fancy magic hats that you'll see around that boost your physical magic defenses as well as your magic attack for your magic attackers. Tip number 4, you're probably going to do this anyway, but just do every single side quest. A new feature in this game is that you have level requirements, recommendations, not requirements, for every dungeon. They're basically, if you look at them, they're basically designed assuming that you're going to go through every side quest anyway, so don't feel like you're going to be over leveled if you do the side quest, for example. You'll be fine if you do the side quest. You probably should do the side quest, otherwise you're going to be really under leveled for the actual story quest. So do that. And tip number 5, if you ever do find yourself under level for any story quest, then fortunately the adventurer now has a healing option. For spending a certain amount of pig, depending on how much you are, depending on where you are in the story, you'll be able to heal your party to full health as if you went to an inn. So what that basically means is that you can turn your encounter rate up to 100% wherever, just circle around the adventurer, who usually chills before the boss battle. Just chill around the adventurer, level up a few levels, and then when you need to heal, you can just talk to the adventurer straight away. He'll heal you. The gold, the pig, sorry, that he charges isn't too much, is about as much as you would get from a standard encounter in that dungeon. So definitely go for it. And if you need to grind, obviously all the experience options from Brave Default return, so you can turn per gain off, you can turn JP gain off, you can turn experience gain off. Customize it to your own sadistic JRPG wants and desires. Now with that out of the way, I want to get to and focus on the actual classes. For the sake of time, I'm going to only focus on a few of the beginner classes, a few of the starting off classes that you're going to get. First of which is the Wizard class, which is also in the demo. The Wizard has a class ability called Spellcraft, where that basically means you get to add extra effects on top of all your spells for 1 brave point. It's incredibly fun. The meta magic, I'm calling it meta magic, Spellcraft doesn't really cost that much MP. It costs 1 brave point, which is a bit of a bummer, but all the effects boost your damage output in some way or another anyway. So typically you're doing roughly around as much damage as you would attacking every other turn with a spellcrafted ability as you would be attacking every ability. And for certain classes like the Summoner, you're actually saving a lot of MP by spreading out your damage this way, since the spellcraft abilities don't actually cost that much. To be able to use Spellcraft on all classes though, you're going to have to get to at least level 5 to unlock the Spellcraft passive ability. So as soon as you get the Wizard drop, I recommend you get at least 2 characters up to level 5 Wizard. So you have at least 1 to do Spellcraft healing and 1 to do Spellcraft offense stuff. A couple of quick combos you can do. You can use, for example, Resurrect, the Bishop spell, with Mist, which puts a mist over your team, which resurrects anyone who's KO'd at the end of the turn back to a certain amount of health, which is really useful very late game when you have bosses which are basically wiping out your team every other turn. You can use Wall, set up a wall on, say, a Swordmaster, for example. That deals damage to whoever hits it, so you get counter attacks and walls for super counter damage. And even pair that up with a ninja, for example. You just get you can direct it onto the Swordmaster, you can direct it onto the wall person, and just do loads of counter damage if you really feel like doing that kind of thing. Just a couple of examples to get you started. Then the second drop you're going to get is the Charioteer class. They're kind of interesting for a few reasons. The class itself, not particularly interesting. Like the Wizard, scales off kind of hard late game. But you do get the triple and quadra wield passive abilities. What this basically lets you do is wield either 3 or 4 weapons instead of just 2 weapons. So you can wield a weapon with your head and your body. I don't know how that works. Your character model isn't updated to show them holding a weapon in their head. I don't know what that's meant to look like, but pair it up with a ninja's dual wield, then your second, third, and fourth weapons are all going to be able to be as effective as your first weapon. Normally, if you're just dual wielding, your offhand weapon is going to be, slightly weaker. It's going to not be able to hit as high of a hit count. If you have the ninja class, all 4 of your weapons are going to be hitting for crazy numbers, which is pretty funny to watch actually. Just watching you be able to hit up to 16 times. If you brave 4 times in one turn, you can hit an enemy 16 times. Each attack doing loads of damage. It's pretty amusing to watch. I went with a triple wielding ninja for my end game build. Not end game build, for my to go through the storyline with, which was pretty amusing. Lots of fun. I'd definitely say try it out. Alternatively, you could also go with triple or quadra wielding rods for a magician, a black mage, for example. Not sure how effective it is because there's already hats and body armor that boost your magic attack. But it's another option if you really want to go full-on glass cannon black mage. The third job you're going to get is a fencer, which is also, another primarily single target damage, single target physical damage dealer early on in the game. The novelty of this class is that you get different stances, which boosts your stats in ways that don't count for the regular buff cap. Usually you're capped at 150% if you're buffing your teammate, for example, but stances go on top of that as well. So you can go up to 175% later on in the game after you unlock the relevant classes that can buff you. But otherwise, aside from that, it's not really too useful, I don't think. It has a counter ability as well, like the Sword Monster, when you're in your defensive stance. So you could try putting Sword Monster and Fence together, but really it's kind of a class you're not going to think about too hard later on in the game, I don't think. Apart from the one that starts you off in the Wolf stance, because actually works regardless of what your job command is or what your secondary command is. So it just starts you off, you know, at an extra 125%. The bishop, on the other hand, has a very poor, is like the opposite. It has a very poor early game, but your late game potential is like ridiculous. At level 8, it's the novelty is that when you compare a bishop to a white mage, for example, is that all your healing is percentage based. So for a start, you don't have to equip staffs, you don't have to have a very good mind for it to use bishops, you don't actually have to be very good, you know, anything magic wise apart from mana, which is kind of cool. All your healing is percentage based, but early on in the game you only have heal, which heals 30%, so that's not great. You know, it goes up to 50% for example, but your red magic, white magic is going to be a lot better early on in the game. But later on in the game it's absolutely amazing. Like, you buy spellcraft, you know, put 100% heals on your entire team, you know, in just one turn like that, for example. It's good. Late game, probably a little bit wetter than the white mage, but cheaper as well. But they're fairly head-to-head, I guess, as they balance out as a whole, because their early game really isn't that good compared to red magic. Now, obviously, the big question is, you know, early on, am I going to level up red magic or am I going to level up holy magic, which is the bishop job command? I'd say what I ended up doing was going for both. I leveled up red magic and holy magic, but the important thing to note is that you don't have to do it that way. The way I did it, you don't have a lot of money at all because you have to buy holy magic spells and you have to buy red magic spells, so it's not very cost effective. The alternative early on is to instead get the thief asterisk. Instead, just steal your way to the top, steal your money, and get, you know, your bishop terms that way, but you're not going to be able to heal that much when it matters. So that's the big opportunity cost. But obviously, you know, you can't really easily just level up bishop when you get to the relevant point in the game, because the big 100% healing spells, benediction and resurrection, there you get them at job level 8, so that's quite late on, even for considering how much JP you're going to get at late game. So I started off my bishop very, very young, but I mean, ultimately it's up to you. I'm just explaining what the cast is like. Obviously there's also points in the quest, so I mentioned thief and red mage earlier. There's going to be points in the game where you have to choose between two different jobs. All I'll say for now is that eventually you will be able to unlock every class, so don't worry about being permanently locked out of a class. But if you do need help making decisions and there's enough interest in that, I can make another video because this one's getting quite long. As my final words, I'll just recommend, you know, if you ever get stuck in the game, just try changing up your jobs, grind a little bit more, Google a walkthrough, whatever. But, you know, don't just like put the game down and never play it again. Just like keep trying again, and keep bravely seconding. Keep bravely second. Yeah, do the thing. Alright. Yeah, so let me know in the comments below if you want to see another video about picking job asterisks. And yeah, let me know how your impressions of the game are forming. And yeah, peace out. Bye.